Hello everyone, welcome to Lighthouse Stamping with Lorraine. Thank you for joining me again on a new video. Today we're going to be using Friends Are Like Seashells and the embossing folder, which is, I'm not sure if you can see the embossing folder on here too easily. It's not hard, it's very hard to see, but it's quite beautiful. It's a 3D embossing folder. This picture probably shows it much better. So we'll be using that. We're using the Friends Like Seashells. There is a die set that goes with this. We are not using the dies. I'll show you what the dies look like. Most of the stamps I've already mounted onto blocks because we're using a good many of the stamps. And this is the die cut. And this die cut matches the embossing folder, so you can cut this out. In a future video, I'm sure I'll show you how that works, but not today. I figured it's summertime, we should talk about seashells and the beach. I know everybody's been talking about Christmas. Now, on the back here, you'll see some pieces. These pieces I made with masking paper. We sell masking paper in the catalog, and it allows you to mask what you're covering so you have dimension in your pictures, and you can hide certain things, and we'll show you how that works. They are reusable. I've already used these once, and I'll show you the project we're going to be making, but we're going to use them again today. I've used some masks 20-30 times depending on how you store them. I find storing them in the case with the stamp set they go with. One thing about masking is, though, you really can't die cut. There is dies like for the seashell and a couple of these others. You cannot die cut the masking unless you want to have a white ring around your item, because the die cuts a white edge, and I wanted mine to come right up to the seashell, so you do have to fussy cut those out. But they last a long time and they're great to use. So I'll show you how those work shortly. Now, you also find this product on page 22 of the catalog. And like I said, it's quite pretty. And so on with what we're going to be making. Okay. Toss the catalog out of the way. Now I'll show you what we're going to be using as far as product. You will find all the dimensions for this card and all the products I used down below in the description. Please subscribe to my video so you know when I upload new videos. So what we're going to be making today is a waterfall card. And this is the card, and it opens. I'm going to try to do this at an angle so you can see it like this, and closes. This part is all embossed with the embossing folder. I don't know if you can see the embossing on there. And then on the inside it is stamped. So this is the card we're going to make, and also we have an envelope. We don't want to have to send out too many naked envelopes. So this is the project we're going to be making. The supplies you'll need, I have pre-cut almost everything just to help speed up time. We are using very vanilla paper. I have already went out ahead. Let's see if I can get this closer so you can see the embossing. I have already embossed this sheet of paper. This is 5 1/4 by 4. We have another piece of very vanilla 5 1/4 by 4. Of course, we've got our envelope. We have, this is our pull mechanism, which is, excuse me, lose my dimensions here. It is 1 3/4 by 8, and we're going to be scoring that together. You need your background pieces, which are seafoam, soft seafoam, and those are 2 1/2 by 2 1/2, and you need 4 of those. We'll set those to the side. You need another little piece, part of your mechanism, which is 2 7/16. I know it's an odd measurement. This is so we can hide this behind and you don't see the mechanism. And it is 1 1/2 inches wide. This piece here is 2 1/4 by 11. And this is the page we're going to design to cut all the small pieces that go on our window card. So let's get some scoring done first, and then we'll work on some stamping. So we're going to set the pieces aside that we don't need at this very moment, that don't need scoring. First, we need to score this in half. So you can do this on your trimmer if you choose. I like the scoring board, and so we will be scoring this at 4 1/4. We'll set all these aside and then we'll burnish them together. This one, we're not actually scoring, we're putting little tick marks in. And the tick marks are going to actually be where you're going to be cutting, but it also helps you place your shells when you're stamping. And these tick marks are going to be at 2 1/4, which is right there. Just make a little line so you can see it. It's going to be hard for you to see, but I can see it. 4 1/2, 6 3/4, and 9. And what I do is I take a pin, and this far in I'm just putting a little X. This I've left as a handle, so when we're blending and stuff, you can have something to hang on to. Okay, so there's tiny little tick marks. I don't know if you can see them right here or not, but those are where we're going to eventually cut. Now, for our mechanism that we're going to need, we are going to be scoring this at, not with a pen, 2 inches. Two and a half, 3, 3 1/2, and 4. And this is our mechanism that we're going to be making. And that should be all of the scoring we need to do. Now we'll grab our bone folder, and we're going to take and fold and burnish all of these score lines. This. So this will be our mechanism. So when you pull this, it will open and close. We'll set that aside. We're not going to score anything on this one. We're going to burnish our card here. And then we have our pieces. Now we're going to go ahead and do some stamping and decorating first. So first thing we need to do is we need to, and I know you can't see these tick marks, but fortunately I can, and you will be when you're working on this. The other thing we're going to need to use is our mat, because this is photopolymer and you want to be able to do this. So, and we are going to start with the first one, which is actually going to start with black, and this one says happy birthday to my beautiful friend, and we're going to be stamping that with a memento. And as soon as I find the memento, and you're going to be placing this, there's the tick marks right there, so we're going to be placing this at the top. Make sure I got that good and covered at the top of the tick mark and inside the lines there. So there's that one. Not too good. You know what? Just like all good paper, there's 2 sides. So let's do that again. And we'll work with the tick marks at the top. Much better. I do have my scrubber here. I am going to scrub and clean just off to the side here as we go, because when you see how many stamps I have, just about every block I own mounted on stamps right now. So next we're going to use our larger shell, and we are going to make that one Highland Heather. So we'll ink him up. Make sure we've got it good and covered. And make sure we're still inside that tick mark. I'm just going to toss them over here. We'll worry about cleaning them in a bit. Next, we need our seashell, which is going to be Calypso Coral. Or starfish, I should say. It's not a sea fish. And I'll put this one away. Just start building a little stack up here. Find my mark. And there's our sea star. And you will notice there's two different types of stamp pads here. This is the old style stamp pad, and these are the new ones. I have several of the old ones still. Like I said, I've been stamping for a very long time, and so it's just the way it is. Next, we are going to use fresh Freesia and stamp this little down here. Tuck him right there. And the next color we're going to use is Coastal Cabana. And we're going to make our sand dollar that color. Find my tick marks. The tick marks are strictly for a reference, so you know that you're in the center of where you're cutting, or going to be cutting. Next, we are going to be using Daffodil Delight. And doing another one. Just get this over a little bit. Whoa, lost my... Did you see what happened? It fell off there. Let's stamp that off and try that again to make sure it's pushed on there well. Every once in a while they do that. I don't know why. I probably didn't press it into it hard enough. And we're going to use, the next one is Flirty Flamingo. Such a tiny little shell on big stamp, but we'll put that one there. Now we'll set this aside for just a moment, and we will grab our piece that's going on the inside. We are going to grab soft sea foam, and we are going to stamp a very large seashell. And you can put it up or down. I'm not sure what is the right way, but I'm going to leave mine. I think I'll put it down this time. I'm going to place this down in this corner here. Done with the seashell, that one. And next we're going to use Blushing Bride. This is a very colorful, and we're going to stamp that across the top here. Like so. One more time, we need our Memento black ink, and I'm going to line this up so I make sure it's straight on my block. I did not do that earlier. And this says this is very dark and black, and it's not because it has ink on it. I needed to use StazOn with this. StazOn is not really recommended for photopolymer stamps. You can use it, but they will be black like this, and you do need to take care of, if you clean them with the StazOn cleaner, then you need to wash them with clean, fresh water and a little bit of soap after, and then rinse them very good and dry them. But not recommended, but it is possible to use it that way. So it also makes it very difficult to make sure you got your ink on your stamp. So I'm giving it a good rub and lots of taps here. I'm going to line that up in the center here. Just like that. That should be the end of the memento. So that's this stamped, so we'll set that back aside. Now we're going to do some blending and some masking. First is the masking, because we want to put in some sand and some sky. So like I said, in the back here, I have these all sitting in here. I'm going to pull this over so you can see them. They're sitting in here, and you see that they're stamped, so you can see exactly what the ones they are. So I'm going to pull that back. And you line this up over of what you just stamped. So I'm pulling these off there and lining them up just like that. And if you stamp on the colors you're using, it doesn't always work if you're switching colors, but I just decided to stamp on the colors I was going to make the shells. And the lovely starfish. He's probably the hardest one to line up. You know, those legs. Oop, I don't have it quite right. You do have to get the legs going the right direction so he lines up. Not quite right yet. Of course it's being difficult. First time I did it, I got it the first try. And then we got the little purple one here. And the little Flirty Flamingo one. Now you do want to rub these, make sure they're down. Oop, down, not flip it up. What we're going to use is we are going to use crumb cake to make our sand. Just so you know, I'm going to show you this. This took me a minute to figure this stamp set out. Mostly, you've got your label on the front, you open it, opens this way. This was upside down in manufacturing, so mine doesn't open this way. It opens upside down. And every time I grab this, I always get confused. This is just, it doesn't affect the stamp set. It's just the stamp pad. It's just backwards, and these things do happen in manufacturing. Now I'm going to be using blending brushes. This is a Stampin' Up blending brush. I had blending brushes before Stampin' Up started selling them, and that's what this is. My other ones are drying because I got them all wet, cleaning them because they are washable, and I do wash mine out so I can use multiple colors. But you're going to rub here, and it's not going to be a lot. Start off your page so you don't have any blobs, and you're just going along the bottom. So you're wanting to make, and it doesn't look like much on this ivory at the moment. The reason I left this piece at the end here, like I said, it just gives you a little place to hang on to when you're doing this, and it doesn't, whoop, and watch that one leg of that starfish. He wants to come up. I'm just going to give it some color, about, you know, not all the way up, because you, like I said, you're going to make a seam for the, a little bit more right in here. And then when you're done with that, you're not done with that ink yet, because you are going to be doing some stand. In the set, there is some dottage. I call it dottage. I love dottage. Used to just call it dots, but I don't know if anybody ever watches Ruth Twice with Artful Stamping with Ruth. They refer to this as dottage, which I think is a great name. And she does a lot of stamping one-sheet designs, which I actually have been learning how to do, and I will probably show you one here in the near future and what you can do with it. But I'm doing multiple stamping in some of this, but just so you get some sand across the bottom. Next, we're going to grab Pool Party. Whoa, as I put my hand, excuse me, in the middle of Pool Party. This So we're going to rub a little pool party on. We're going to start off to the side. And we'll just lightly put it on. Going right down to the brown. I know it doesn't look real dark on the screen. I'll try to darken it up a little more. I'll hold this up here in a minute so you can see it a little better. See if I can get that a little closer. You can see the blue. It's on ivory, so it gives it a different texture, different look than on white. It's not as stark. So we're done with that. Now we have to finish our shells. So the first thing we have to do is remove our masks. So I'm going to grab my case again so I can just set them on my case or in my case. And you just gently come in with a pick, take a pick tool, pair of tweezers, something very soft so you don't ruin them, and lift them off. Take a pick tool would grate that. The little spatula on the end would probably work. Pointy sometimes works a little better. So there is the mast. So if you pull this up, you can see where they're in. You see the seashells, but they're inside. They're on the beach. Now, got a couple other things we're going to do. First is, there was a couple areas I wanted to darken in a little bit on a couple of these shells, just to make them look a little cooler. And one of them was this one here. So I'm grabbing the Calypso Cabana again, and I'm going to grab my Wink of Stella. And I'm just going to come in on the side here, very gently on the ends, right here. And get a little Wink of Stella. Don't go into the top because you don't want Wink of Stella over everything. Just get a little Wink of Stella in there. And what I want to do is, it'll blend to a certain extent, the ink there. But Calypso Cabana, blending works better on darker colors with the Wink of Stella. The lighter ones don't blend quite as nice. You have to add a little extra. There we go. I wanted to add a little bit more color inside that because that part is always darker. You could add color all around, the last one I did. And then when you're done with that color, just wipe it off. And then what I wanted to do is just go around and add a little Wink of Stella to the rest of these, to the shells. Now keep in mind, you don't put the Wink of Stella on before you try to mask, because the masking doesn't like to stick to Wink of Stella. Adhesives don't particularly like to stick to Wink of Stella. So some do, but most don't, and I find it easier to put that on last. So we just give it a little wink there. Add a little extra color, nothing there. And so I'm going to lift all the ink pads out of my way now. I know there's a few. And we're going to go ahead and cut this up now. So we know that it's 2 1/4. We also know where our tick mark was. So we're going to cut each of these at 2 1/4. It's just easier to do this on a long sheet than to do it on a smaller sheet. You can do them individually. You just cut them at 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 and go from there. Now, set this aside. We have, and this is the way I want them to go into my card. There was something that was missing when I started looking at this, and I said, it needs a bird, a couple birds. There's always birds at the seashore. And I started looking at my current stamp sets and realized I didn't have any birds. So I went looking at older stamp sets, and I'm sure many of you have older stamp sets. This is Sailing Home. This is On Horizons. They both just retired. They both have birds. So you can do that, or I will show you how to, we're going to use Sailing Home birds, but I will show you how you can, if you don't have a stamp set that has birds, I'm going to use this as my sample. Grab this is a black gel pen. All you have to do, that's a bird. You make all different shapes birds. As long as it's a black, and I prefer a gel pen because it's smoother, but you can make birds without having a stamp. But I do, and it is retired, sorry. But hopefully you have some birds in your retired set. You know, something that you've had in the past. So I'm going to stamp a couple birds here and put a couple birds there. Just a couple. Doesn't need a lot. I don't even need them really dark. I could have done them in gray if I wanted. But it just, to me, it needed something. Little birds. So now what we're going to do is we're going to assemble the card. Oh, I did forget to stamp one thing. So let's grab my Highland Heather. And this stamp here. And we'll just sort of tuck that right there. Now, do you see this here? There's a line right through my Highland Heather. This is why you need to be careful not to run your fingernail across these. The day I got this, I opened it up, and right across there I went with my fingernail. So just a little warning to be careful not to ruin your pads. Didn't ruin it totally, it still works. So we have our envelope done. We are going to start mounting these on here real quick. So they go on these four. You can use any glue of your choice or tape. You do need to make sure that they are glued down sufficiently. They're not going to be coming up. Waterfall cards are sort of fun. You can make them just about any size you want. This is a small one. Someday I may show you. I made actually a minute photo album, which is not so mini. It's quite large, but it's a photo album that has a giant waterfall display in it. So sometime in the future here I will show you that. I may even show you how I made it. So now we need our mechanism. When you look at your mechanism, it's going to fold it in half from the first score line. This here is going to be your bottom. And this is my biggest thing, is trying to figure out. You could put a pull thing here. You could write pull if you have a little stamp that says pull. We unfortunately do not. I'm going to be using the old-fashioned hole punch. Any hole punch you have will do. I know some of you may have an old Stampin' Up! One. Mine is no more. I punch a hole in the bottom to start with. This way I always know what's the bottom and don't mess myself up. So also what we're going to need to do is grab tear and tape now. Glue is not strong enough. Wait, I shouldn't say that. Glue is strong enough, but you have to sit there and hold it a long time so it adheres to it. I prefer tear and tape for this. Seal will not work. It's not strong enough. Seal Plus would work. But you want to put these up towards the top, but not over the lines. And I know I tripped a little piece of paper there, but it won't make any difference because you're not going to see this, because this is all going to be hidden. So I want to grab my bone folder, and I want to give these a rub because I want to make sure that they are adhering to that paper really good. So we're going to start at the top, and we're going to peel the first one off. And this is the first card I said I wanted on the top. I'm trying to do this without getting my head in the camera. You've got to line it up with the top of this, but you also need to make sure you are centered. So I'm not pressing down, I'm just laying it on there. And don't take all the paper off, all the glue, just do one. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to check this on my grid paper to see if I'm straight. And sometimes just laying it on the grid so it's square, and then give it a good press, because you want it to be as square as possible so the waterfall cards work. So now we're going to lift this up, and if you lay it in your grid on a grid paper, you're going to pull off the next one, and you line it up the best you can, but you got to also line up the top, which I'm going to have to lift this because I don't want to get my head in the camera. And try to get it as square as possible before you press it down. So now this is lining up like that, and we'll go to the next one. When you're trying to do this and you're not trying to keep your head out of the camera, it will be a little easier. But it is pretty easy. I'm laying it here to make sure that everybody's straight. Being that's 2.5 inches, it lines up perfectly on the grid. And grid paper has the same grids. I'm not pressing down hard yet. I'm off just a little bit. Now I'm going to press. So there's our pieces on there. Not too bad. So now we're going to attach the next piece, and this is a very important piece. This is the piece that is going to adhere the card to the front, to the front of the card, I should say. So what I want to do first is I want to take tear and tape, and right at the edge, you have very little room. I mean, I'm going right at the edge, and I want to go right to the edge of this. I'm actually using a block. This is an old block. I'm not even sure where I got that block. It's not even stamping up, but I needed a lot of blocks. A credit card works good for this too. You know, old cards you don't have. But you want these right up to the top. You want to press and make sure that there's no bubbles and it's really firm in there. Then you're going to take this and you're going to glue it on the top, and you're going to line this up so it's in the middle but lined up right flush here. So I'm going to put some glue on here. I'm putting it on this piece here, and it goes on the top piece like this, right in the center. Oop. And hold it there, and then you lie this down just slightly. And I'm not quite over enough because you need to be inside that 2-inch square. So that piece is right dead center here. So when you close it, you won't see it. Okay, next we need to put some more pieces on. So let's go ahead and put the inside in. Now, you could adhere this with lots of different ways, this piece is embossed. I personally prefer to use tear and tape on embossing. It tends to hold really well with embossing pieces, and you don't have to worry about getting the glue, you know, on the pieces that are higher. But you can use glue, seal, it's whatever you choose to do. Make sure it's going the right direction. There is a wrong and right direction to this embossing folder. It's going up this way. And finally, we're going to put some ribbon on. I'm using some seed binding ribbon. Roughly, if I can find my snips, roughly about 8 inches. We're just going to fold it over like that. Make a little loop, kind of come in from the front, grab it, and then pull this through. You could use twine for this, you know, whatever you want. It's just to show people, and you need to go both pieces through. It's just to show people where to pull, so they know when they get the card that, you know, maybe there's something here, I'm supposed to do something. And I'm sure you will do this a lot neater than I am, because I lost it in there. And just give it a light pull. Don't pull too hard on this or it will take and rip your hole out. Unless you have a brad and a brad setter, then you could put a brad in there too. So the last thing we need to do is line this up and adhere this to the front of the card. So we've got our pieces here. This, and you line everything up the best you can because you're only going to get one shot at this. And then press as hard as you can where it is. Then lift this up just slightly and get your hands under here and press. And even take your bone folder and run across that glue or the adhesive, just right on that one piece. Don't run it across the mechanism, and so your card will open up just like that. And you got to do it a few times, and I would recommend doing it a few times before you put it in an envelope, just so it can, you know, get in there. If when you do this, if you get a little adhesive that's on the edge and it's sticking and catching, just take your embossing buddy and rub it across there, or a little cornstarch. Baby powder works too. I always carry a little thing of powder so I can do that. But embossing buddy works really good, which you can find in the catalog. So that's our card, the waterfall card and envelope. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you try this card. It's quite fun. If you don't have this stamp set, use something else. The hippos would be great on this too, by the way. The elephant parade would be cute. Any of the animal stamps are darling for this kind of stamp set as well. So have a good day, and thank you for joining me, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.